All right, hi everybody. So I kind of enjoyed making that video of how to program Sokoban with bitboards, but one of the things that kind of annoyed me was the actual experience of playing the game is kind of poor. And basically, just as a quick little demonstration of why I didn't like it, is that every time you want to move, you don't just have to press the key that you want to use. You also have to press enter every time, and then once you've done that, you can see what happens is this old board is still visible in the terminal. And so you just get this kind of thing where you can see everything that happened, but it's kind of a bad experience. So what I thought would be kind of cool is to change it so that way we're going to use ncurses. And ncurses basically lets you interact with the terminal and tell the terminal where you want certain characters to print. So it's kind of a very cool thing. It's also going to fix the problem of you have to press the command and then press enter. It has this useful thing called get ch or get character. And so what this video is going to be, it's going to be about actually implementing or changing our implementation to use ncurses. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to start by doing ln ncurses. And this is basically saying we're going to include the library ncurses. And if you're on Mac, you can do it. You can include it. You can actually install it by just using brew install ncurses. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to waste all of our time. And instead, I'm just going to go to actually implementing it. So the first thing to do is, since we have it included, we have to actually ncurses.h, I believe is what it is. And yep, and now we can actually just start changing our implementation to actually use ncurses. And basically the way we're going to do it is we're going to look at all of our places where we use cout and we're going to change it. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change our game loop. So what we're going to do to actually do this is we're going to start by we're going to keep our state.render and we're going to have to change it. But before we can actually do anything with it, we actually have to start initializing stuff. So the first thing to do is we're going to do this init screen function. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to put this right here. And I'm actually going to comment it out for right now. But the reason why we care about it is we're going to make the cursor invisible. So this right here, this little blue line, that's basically showing you where I am. That's a cursor. And when we set it to 0 like this, it's going to make it go away. So anyways, the one other thing we need to do is we're going to have a clear function right here. And then instead of this kind of like u1 thing, I'm going to get rid of that. And then what we need to do is we need to basically do a get ch. And then just to do this, I'm going to move the cursor. So again, this is the cursor and it's telling it where to move. So 0, 0. When we actually open ncurses, it's going to be right here, for example. And then it's going to go down here, row by column. Okay, so get ch is basically get character. And so the reason why we care about calling a get character right here is after the player wins, we don't want to just like have the screen disappear on them. We want to wait until they press something. And then once they press something, then we'll close the screen and that'll be them. So we'll do this. And we'll also, the reason why we're putting this here is we're going to use this function called printw, and it's going to be u1. Great. Okay, an exclamation mark, obviously, because we're excited. So I'm just going to change one other thing. I don't want that. I'm not actually going to start running it anymore. Just like build, let's just say. So make build, we'll see if it worked. We can see it worked. But if we actually run it, it's just going to be a bunch of nonsense. Well, actually, level 1, right? So it's just a bunch of nonsense. So we're going to come back to that in just a little bit. And the first function we're going to update is this state update function. Right. So in here, we're using a bunch of C++ to make it work. And we're also using a string with getLine. And you can see we're doing this error handling. We don't actually care about that anymore. So instead, we're just going to do const char user input is equal to get ch. So this gets something from ncurses. And then we actually don't care about this anymore. We could totally have this this error handling, but we don't need it. And so the next thing to do is we're going to go into state rendering. So in here, right, we're basically going to change all of our rendering to actually be able to print it into the ncurses screen. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to make it super easy, and I just want to print stuff. And then once that's done, then we're going to actually change it so it's going to be centered based on the terminal. So right now we're just going to print it right here. And then we're going to make one update so we actually print it in the center over here, it being the board, the game. Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to move the cursor, and this is basically where we want to print. Start Y. And then we're going to do p.y. I know I don't have p. Actually, it's just, yeah, let's just do p.y. So p.y is the row and p.x is the column. So far, pretty good. So the next thing to do instead of couting is we're going to actually do this. And this is adding the character. There's another version where you can include the row and column in it, but I just think for the way I implemented it, it's just a little bit more convenient to do it this way. And then we're gonna do X. Now we're gonna go to the block. Now we're gonna do the block that isn't. Did I mess up? Yeah, no, I just need to that. The next one is to do a block that is not over a switch, so like that. The next one is just a switch. Also easy, and then we just don't care about this one. And now we also don't care about this. So we're just going to see what happens and see if it worked. So you can see we have our level 1. Let me start with level 0 actually, just because that one's a little bit easier. And boom. Everything's working. I'm pressing A and D, and we have this working super nicely. There's one thing I don't like right now, which is that the cursor is showing up right here, but we'll come back to that in just a second. And let's see what happens when I win. U1, and you can see that this U1 that we just printed at 0, 0 is kind of blocking this screen, which isn't great, which is one of the reasons to move it over here. And so yeah, let's start by actually moving this over into the middle. That's reasonable enough. And so basically the way to be able to do this is we need to be able to know where we are. Actually, we can just do that right now. Invisible cursor, obviously. Let's just do that. And now if we do like a.out0, boom, right? The cursor's gone, and you can see the game's a little bit better already. And so next up, let's go into actually centering the board. So we do this. And what we're going to do is we need to actually know the size of the screen we're working with. And I also want to be able to handle the case where the user just adjusts the size of the terminal. So one way to do it is if we assumed a constant state, then we could just get this information once. But I'm going to do it every time we render because maybe between frames they change the size of the terminal. So I'm just going to put that kind of big for right now. I'm going to create two variables, max x and int max, or no, just not int, and max y. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this function get max yx, and then I'm going to pass in the standard screen, and then I'm going to pass in max y, max x, right? And that's basically going to be able to get us the size of this screen. And then the next thing to do is I want to figure out where along this screen I should start drawing the board. So for that, I'm going to do a constant start x, and this is going to be equal to max x, which we just found, the state.columns, and then we're going to divide by 2. So basically that's saying this is the middle point. If we just did max x over 2, this is the middle point, but we also want to take into account how wide the level is. So we're going to push it back a little bit to get, so that way the whole level when rendered will be centered. Now for the next one, it is just the exact same thing, basically, except we're going to be doing it for the y coordinates or the rows. So there's that. And the next thing to do is we're right here. So since we're using the rows, we're going to use start.y plus that. And then for this one, we're going to use start x. Sorry, I didn't mean to do a dot there. I think that's right. And now for some reason, I just feel like I should add a new line because it's a little bit cleaner looking. So let's make to see if there's any problems with it. Let's do level 0. So now you can see we're nice and centered, which is pretty cool. Nice, the U1 text is working. All right, looks pretty good. Oops, I made that impossible to win. And now we beat it. And the last one is level 2, which is pretty crazy looking, and we're actually not gonna try to solve, but you can see we're centered, it's working, and life is pretty good there. The last thing I wanna do before I just kind of call this is I want to add a little title on top of the game. So let me do it this way. I'm going to move the cursor, that is, and I'm gonna make it so it's relatively always towards the top of the screen. And then I'm gonna use max X because we want to center the title, and we're gonna print out Sokoban. So Sokoban is 7 characters long, and then I'm just gonna divide that by 2, and then I'm gonna use that print W function that we've already seen. Oops, Sokoban with an A. I know that's been a typo throughout this whole thing. So let's make it level 1. You can see Sokoban's working. And actually, let me do it like this so you can kind of see everything kind of works, but you can see if the terminal isn't wide enough or high enough, then it's not going to work. So we leave that to the user to actually handle. But once we do that, we do that, we do that, and we beat the game. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to do. Is there anything else under here? Pause window. Just to show you why this is kind of necessary, let me keep that. If I do it like this, without this get ch, and I can see that I had a typo. If I do it like this, and then let's just do level 1 again. So I'm going to solve level 1. And then you can see it just ends the second I solved it. So that's why you kind of want this hate that function. Anyways, that's why you want this, because without it, the actual experience of beating the level is kind of not that great. And you can imagine if you beat level 2, then you'd kind of want to take a moment just to see the fully solved level to feel kind of good about it. So yeah, anyways, that is how you can take Sokoban that you built to just print to the terminal and turn it into an ncurses game, which you can tell, hopefully, is just kind of smoother overall as an experience for the user. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope this was enjoyable. I think I'm going to do one more where I take all this and then I actually turn it into a little Raylib game, so we can actually load multiple levels and we can do it that way. Maybe we'll add a menu. But yeah, I hope if anybody watched this was fun. And yeah, have a great day.